What is up, guys, and welcome back to Owen Goes Deep. Today, we are going to talk about Cold Mountain.
Alright, since none of you have actually read Cold Mountain, let me explain the plot. The book starts with Inman, who is an injured Confederate soldier trapped in a hospital after a gruesome battle. Inman decides that he couldn't stand the war anymore and had to be with his lover Ada, so he escaped the hospital. Ada had moved to Cold Mountain earlier, so that is exactly where Inman knew he had to go. Both characters were looking for each other on Cold Mountain and had to strenuously make their way through the most dangerous parts of it, barely escaping death each day. And after a long time, they do eventually meet up and spend 4 long days together until Inman dies in Ada's arms from a fatal gunshot wound. So, moving on to the discussion, does anyone have anything they want to bring up?
Yeah. So I actually had an idea I wanted to bring up. It was kind of like a reoccurring theme in the book of the past. Inman mainly with the war, and Ada just with Monroe and her family before. I
Yeah,
wanted to ask y'all's thoughts on that.
I see what you're saying. There's definitely a heavy use of flashbacks in the novel. It's definitely a major tool that the author employs to give you context to the situation that Inman is in. You see about all of his pain and suffering from the war, and that's sort of why he's deciding to take this journey.
And also at the same time, these flashbacks help put the whole idea of what he's doing into perspective. After all, these actions that he's taking are going to have grave consequences. So it helps to, fill in the blanks as to why exactly he's doing this. All right, one thing I definitely want to bring up about this story is how important it is the decisions that the main character Inman makes over the course of the book, because those decisions directly affect how the story will transpire.
Yeah, definitely, Eric. So I think one good example of that is Vasily the priest, and how he decided not to kill him, but allow him to continue the quest with him.
Yeah, that's definitely an important thing to bring up, especially given how much he affects the story. Like in some ways, he's total prick, and that he should not have brought him along. But in other ways, he kind of like saved Inman's life. I mean, not willingly, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
basically how
but
it
I
happened.
just feel like the important thing to look at here is the fact that he was going to try to kill his pregnant wife. I mean, think about that. He was going to murder his pregnant wife. So here's what Inman needed to do. He needed to like smack him down. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. In many ways, Inman just left his fate in his own hands. He tied him up by that tree and put the sign over his head. So I think Inman did his part in leaving the fate
The
to the
question is that enough?
is
I
well,
mean, he did die. I mean, he did die in the end. So
This is true.
he I think that yeah, he was definitely a kind of a definite gray character in many ways.
yeah.
So I found an interesting quote on page 9. I wanted to bring up for discussion. Uh, the blind man said, "It might have been worse had I ever been given a glimpse of the world, then lost it." So I wanted to know if y'all agreed with that or your thoughts on it.
Well, I think it definitely depends on the curiosity of the person. If you're the kind of person who has a deep burning desire to know what the world looks like, then it might be better to get a glimpse and then lose it because at least then you have the security of knowing what the world at least somewhat looks like. You don't get to see everything, but you get to see a piece of it. Or if you're the kind of person who has such an overwhelming curiosity that if they see one glimpse, they have to see the rest. Otherwise, it'll eat them up inside and cause them more sadness than having never seen it at all.
I also agree with this quote, but I think that it could also be foreshadowing about Inman seeing Ada after their long, treacherous journey through Cold Mountain. Could be referring to how if Inman saw Ada and then lost her, he might be worse off than just never seeing her in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was thinking more along your lines, Owen, with the depends on the person.
Mhm.
It would also depend on what they saw. Like in this time, if they saw something relating to the war, I think that would be a pretty turn off of the world. And if they saw something good, like I don't know, just the nature around them, it would be make them pretty sad for
Mm-hmm.
a scene.
Well, right. I guess it does depend on what you see in that glimpse. But I think it depends on a lot of different factors for how upsetting it would be. Um, Whether or not you want to see the world doesn't really have anything to do with it because seeing the world could cause a lot more sadness if it's taken away from you than having never
Well,
seen it.
well, I guess if you're blind and you have never seen the world and you're longing for a glimpse of it, it might be worse to get a glimpse of it than, let's say, if you already know what the world looks like. It might not be as impactful on you as it would on the blind guy.
It's true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Me too. Okay, now it's about time we wrap up of what the book is truly about. This is a tragic love story between two people separated by war who finally managed to get back together only to be torn apart in the end. This book is quite tragic, and we should all take the time to read about it and understand it because we all can have different views about this book. Anybody care to enlighten us?
I definitely thought it was a very good book. It offered a new sort of eye into what the state of affairs was during the Civil War. A lot of times when you are learning about the Civil War in a history class or whatever, you just learn about the war and not sort of what the living conditions were like. I had no idea that a simple walk or journey through the backcountry would cause so many crazy events and so much danger for inmen.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Owen. What are books if they don't take you into that historical time? And Cold Mountain did that really well. It showed the devastation of the war and how everyone was affected, not just the warriors, but the women, the children, the men at home, the preachers. It really gave a good lens of that time.
Beyond that, it was just a good book to read. I mean, I had trouble putting it down.
That vivid imagery really hit home.
Yeah,
For me, the book was about how you should always do what makes you happy, even if it includes like a huge risk to it. Like Inman escaping the hospital to see Ada, he really just didn't know anything about where she was or what the journey would include, and he chose to get out of that hospital because he knew that it was just tearing him apart in the Civil War, and he just knew that he had to do whatever he had to do to make himself happy.
Thanks for listening to Owen Goes Deep, and be sure to tune in next time.